Hi everyone, welcome to Mark's 900, I'm Mark. Now then, today I was going to go and test ride the Z900 RS and see what the difference is between an RS and the standard Z900 that I ride, other than of course the obvious styling. So despite the fact that Kawasaki have had a demonstrator parked outside their Gloucester showroom for months, when I got there they told me that it was sold last week. The thing is, they can't get hold of any more Z900 RSs until at least the end of the year. There's clearly no point in demonstrating a bike when you haven't got any to sell, and so they sold the demonstrator as well. So that's it, the global shortage strikes again, and it's not just the RS but also the Ninja 1000 SX. However, there were loads of 650s in the shop and a few standard Z900s. I'd like to think that's because they made more of them, but the truth is they're just not as popular, and that's evident from what I see on the roads and at bike nights. It's just a shame that I'm not going to find out what the RS is like and why it's so good, at least not until next year. Anyway, let's have a chat about rear view mirrors, which sounds about as exciting as a big pair of grey underpants, but bear with me because you might actually find this useful if you're thinking about replacing those bug-eyed stock mirrors with something altogether cooler looking. There are three parts to this video: what can go wrong with cheap mirrors, issues with fitting bar ends to the Z900, and probably all other Kawasaki's, and then there's the trials and tribulations of putting your mirrors into different positions. Right, let's have a look at what went wrong with my bar end mirrors to start with. Now, I came across two issues. First of all, the one on the right hand side is holding a little bit of water inside it, so after it's been raining or I've washed the bike, I do get dribbles of water coming out, but I don't really care. These cost me like £10 from eBay, so you know, if I need to replace one, I can just easily do that. On this side I've got a bit more of a problem because I was looking at the paintwork on it and I scratched a little bit of paintwork on there and it just fell straight off. So you can see what happens when you get corrosion on aluminium underneath your paint. That is quite a mess. Now luckily, as I say, these were very cheap, and I even ended up buying two sets because I over tightened this nut or this bolt on the first one and that caused it to crack because it tightened that joint too much. So I have actually got a spare set, so I've got one of these and I'm going to put that on there. So all I've got to do is get this off and I'll put that in with quite a bit of thread lock, and my mirrors have never moved, so I'm guessing that's in there quite firmly, but I'm going to take that bolt out, take that off and replace it. Now then, if you ever take your original bar ends off, they look like this. So they're quite a complex structure inside of there, and on the end of the bar what you've got is something which is kind of rounded. So the challenge is, when you buy yourself a set of bar end mirrors, what they need to do is sit on there and not be able to swivel round. But of course you've got a flat surface on there and a rounded surface there, and the two don't go very well together. So that is really difficult to do. So my first attempt was to buy these bar ends. They're pretty standard, and I put a rubber washer inside and then put that on there and then put the mirror over the top of that, so it looked a bit like this. Okay, you can see I've got the mirror over the bar end and I've had to use a rubber shim because the mirror didn't close up tightly enough, and then I put that onto the end of my bars. Now it kind of looked all right, but it never felt particularly safe because it always looks like that mirror is about to slide off the end. So that for me wasn't really the way to do it, and what I settled with was buying these adapters. And I bought this adapter from a company called Highside, had to drill out that hole to make it bigger, and then that sits over there and presents a flat edge for you then to attach your mirrors. So this is what I end up with then. I've got the Highside adapter, which is this thing here. I've got this part, which is the mirror. There's a rubber shim which sits on this part, and then the whole lot just gets bolted together. So it all kind of sits something like that. And that way it doesn't spin round. It's got a good firm grip against the bar ends. So that's the way I managed to solve the bar end mirror problem. Now that I've solved the quality issues on the bar ends and worked out how to fit them without having a mirror swing round every time I hit one of the numerous Gloucestershire potholes, it's time to think about which is the best position to have them in. I'm heading up to one of the most famous places near me, which is called Cooper's Hill. Never heard of it? Well, this is the hill where they do the world famous cheese rolling, and if you don't know what that is, have a look at some of the footage on YouTube. Essentially, they get a massive round lump of double Gloucester cheese and roll it down the hill, and then set the runners off to chase after it. The first person down the hill wins the cheese, and it doesn't usually matter whether they're conscious or not. Every year we have broken limbs, teeth knocked out, trips to hospital, and on one occasion the cheese even rolled into the crowd and broke someone's leg. It's mental. Just think of throwing yourself down a black run at a ski resort, except that you're not on skis with a nicely pisted slope, more of a rough grassy hill with a pissed up crowd. Anyway, the view is lovely today, you can see for miles, and there's a car park at the bottom of the hill, so let's have a look at the current setup. A few people have commented on the channel about how bar end mirrors that sit on top of the bars, like mine do, make the bike look like it has cow horns. Now, I always thought they looked like devil horns, which is kind of cool, but now someone has said that my bike looks like a cow, I'm having trouble getting past it. Luckily, in my rucksack I've got a selection of basic tools, so I'm going to go and grab my Allen keys and set to work swapping over the mirrors and putting them underneath the handlebars. Now, I've never tried this, but I'm told that it's a favourite option by many Z900 aficionados. Right, so that was easy enough, and what do you reckon? So I think they look much better than how I had them before, like really tidy and even more aggressive. So I mean, what's not to like? But just how useful are they, and can I see anything behind me? Well, let's go in for a quick road trip and find out. Right, so I turned the bike around in the car park and then did about 100 metres and found a couple of problems. The main thing is that the mirrors now bash into the side fairings by the tank. Well, that's no good at all, so back out with the spanners and the Allen keys to change the angle of the mirrors. I suppose I could fold them outwards, but that's just going to look stupid and sort of negates the whole idea of doing this in the first place. Right, so with my Allen keys, I've got the mirrors moved forwards just to avoid the tank. I now can't change the angle of the mirrors enough to see anything other than my ankles. This is clearly a disaster, and maybe it's just the type of mirror that I'm using, but I've tried to ride with them like this, and I've now realised just how much I use my mirrors. It feels horrible to ride without being able to see behind you, and so whilst this might seem like the bike's meeting a legal requirement to have a mirror, it's of no practical use. I'd be really interested to hear from any of you out there who've managed to do this, because I'd like to know if there's a particular type of mirror that I need, or am I just being mechanically inept, or is this something that you have to put up with? So next up, I'm just going to go and try the stock mirrors. Yes, I've actually brought them with me. Now, I haven't had these on the bike for over a year, so let's give them another go. Now, to make the handlebars look neater, I have two screws in the mounting points where they go in, and, well, I didn't bring a screwdriver, so I'm going to have to break out the Z900 toolkit for the first time ever. Right, so there we go, screws out, and let's get those old stock mirrors back on. So what do you think of these whoppers? Well, of course they don't look that out of place and are the standard fit for any Z900 rolling out of the showroom, but for me the bike has lost its purposeful aggressive stance and now looks more like a bunny rabbit, and not a good one like one of Hugh Hefner's. But I suppose the question is really just how good are they, because I genuinely don't remember using them. So let's have a quick ride up to the beautiful village of Painswick and find out. Now, on the left through this village you'll spot St Mary's Church, which has a history that goes back to 1040, and it has a collection of 99 very carefully shaped yew trees, and who doesn't appreciate a nicely trimmed bush? But legend has it that the devil won't allow a 100th tree to be planted, and so 99 it is. Anyway, back to the mirrors. Well, they're definitely much better than the bar ends, but I have to be honest and say that they're not that much better. I was expecting a wow moment and realisation about just how much I've been missing out on. But no, they're just kind of decidedly average, and quite honestly, in this particular trade between useful but goofy mirrors versus something not quite as effective but massively more stylish, then I'm going to go with the style option and get the old bar ends back on as soon as the bike's home. Now, at this point, what I'm really interested in is what you guys are doing with your mirrors. Are there better options? What are you guys using? And what do you recommend? So I'm really looking forward to those comments, but in the meantime, keep your chains oiled and I'll see you soon.